The Nuggets get back to work after All-Star break. We'll talk about why you should feel confident in the Nuggets defense. Plus, a look at the schedule and what the big games are remaining for the Nuggets in the last quarter of the season. All this and more as we return to Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making this your first listen. We appreciate you guys joining us on all platforms, whether you're on YouTube, hanging out with us in the live chat comment section, listen to us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. Glad to have you with us. Thanks for making this part of your week. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. Coming to you solo today. Adam Mares is off today. He'll be with you tomorrow and through the rest of the week as I'm taking a little mini vacation before the real grind of the NBA season starts. Wanted to talk about today. We'll get to a couple of subjects. We'll talk about my reactions from All-Star Weekend, Nikola Jokic's comments at All-Star Weekend, about All-Star Weekend. Some of that, we're going to get to more important things. Like we'll talk about the schedule and what games remaining the Nuggets really need to focus on, as well as their priorities coming out of the All-Star break. We'll talk a little bit about the defense and why I think that there's a lot of upside here for the Nuggets still, and why you should feel confident that they are not the team that they were early in the season, nor the team that the overall numbers suggest that they are. We'll do all that more on today's show. We'll let you know that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Wow. Chat is bumping. Finley Bressler says, Matt, how do you feel about your wife cooking you on Twitter yesterday? Yeah, that was not uncommon, but boyish. And I came up to her and was like, what are you doing? And she was like, yeah, I thought you were on a show. You were supposed to be, you weren't, please make me dinner. Yeah. So I do the cooking in the house. I don't want to hear it from her. Let's talk about All-Star. So Nikola Jokic plays a little bit in the All-Star game. Conversations abound about All-Star weekend and about the problems with it. I will say this, that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope probably makes the finals. I would say that if he was in the three-point contest, that he probably doesn't win because Dame wound up winning on the long distance starry shots. I got a whole case of starry in my hotel room out there. Did not try it. I will not try it. But that was probably why they won. And I don't know if KCP's got range from that kind of distance. Does kind of give you some upside though for next year for Michael Porter Jr. rather. If MPJ gets in the contest next year, those long distance shots may be a way for him to win. I'd be worried about him finishing the rack, but in general, that was that. Dunk contest was obviously fantastic. Mac McClung. Would love to get Aaron Gordon's thoughts on Mac and what he thought about that dunk contest. Wasn't at practice yesterday as I kind of try and get caught up on work, but would love to get Aaron's thoughts on what he thought of Mac's performance in the dunk contest. As far as the All-Star game goes, Nikola said he's not made for that game, and it's absolutely right. Like Nikola's made for actual basketball, and I think Nikola can probably play pickup, but the game has devolved into such a bad place. I'm not going to sit here and trash it. I think you can find enough about that. And it's not, I'll say this, I don't mind people trashing it. I think that there needs to be feedback to tell the league, like, hey, this product, which is a signature product for you, is a bad product. No one likes it. No one tries. The players who are in it themselves are dogging it. It's a problem. What I will say though is like it's cool that Nikola Jokic is to see the overall evolution. I've talked about this with LeBron James, being able to see and watch his entire career. To see Nikola go from a guy who was kind of giddy at his the first time he was at All-Star Weekend, even for the Rising Stars game, to go from that guy to a guy that really seemed like he dreaded it, to a guy that seems really comfortable in the All-Star kind of flow of things. I don't necessarily think that he's thrilled to be there. He'd always rather be back in Serbia and with his family. But I do think that he's become accustomed to it and kind of accepted where he's at in the league. Like he has adapted and changed himself to meet the needs of being the kind of franchise superstar that he is. And he understands that he's like a representative of the city, the team, and the league. And he does so, I think, with a large amount of respect and performance. Jack wants to know, where's Adam? He's off today, so you can come back tomorrow if you want. Zamora says the ratings were an all-time low. Not surprising. Not surprising. So I think that there's a lot of this, like, I think that there's an awareness. The league really championed its engagement on All-Star weekend. And I think that's a bad way to go about it, in part because you don't make that much money off of engagement. But two, just like, look, on some level, people need to really want to be able to consume your entire product and not just the clips of it. And then the inability to really captivate and tell a story or have a narrative or even just have like a compelling event. And a lot of this gets into the fact that in sports, stakes are an inherent part of that. And currently, it doesn't feel like there are any stakes to All-Star weekend, not from the beginning of it to the end, not in Rising Stars, not in the Skills Challenge, not in the dunk contest, not in the All-Star game. And the absence of those stakes, I think, is a real problem, because that's really what makes sports truly compelling. So I think that's going to have to be something that the league looks at. But I also say this, I have a column going up on Action Network that talks about this in relation to rest management and load management, because I do think the two issues are intertwined. Adam Silver talked about how this season they're seeing record ticket sales. And on top of that, they're seeing record season ticket renewals. So all-time highs for attendance and season ticket renewals. It's not a coincidence that Silver said that. The situations are not necessarily analogous, but there is, I think, a through line here to what happened with the Robert Sarver situation, which was effectively that Adam Silver kind of said, like, look, our hands are tied in terms of what we can do here without enough pressure from outside entities. Like, the implication was basically, look, if the sponsors come in and the fans come in and they make it clear that the money will be affected, then we can get Robert Sarver replaced. But it's going to take that. And then that happened. And Silver's taking a kind of a similar approach here, essentially saying, like, look, as long as the money's coming in, what's our incentive to be able to shift things? So you have to be able to provide some sort of, it's either got to be an incentive to change the way that the All-Star events are occurring, or you have to be able to provide some sort of concern that they have to alleviate, like a cost that they have to mitigate. And those two things, I think, are an issue. Alexander Pekovic says, man, you know that when Yoke says that the game's not meant for him, that's not a real basketball game. It's kind of true. It's kind of true. Steve Wynn says you have to buy tickets because you can't watch them on local TV in terms of the games. That's absolutely true. And Zamora kind of notes that the Nuggets are finally, or Hurricane rather notes that the Nuggets are finally selling tickets. That's true. That's been a huge part of it as well. So that's enough All-Star talk. There's actual things to get to. I want to talk about the schedule. We'll do that. And then after, in the third segment, we're going to talk about the defense, some concerns, but also some reasons for optimism for what Denver's going to be long-term defensively. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I need to tell you about Nissan and give you Nissan's Most Electric Player of the Week. Nissan's Most Electric Player of the Week is brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it to Jamal Murray, who's set to return, by the way, on Thursday. Said he's going to be good to go. Aaron Gordon is still going to be questionable. But I'm going to give the Most Electric Player of the Week to Jamal Murray, because I noticed this over the weekend. There was a lot of conversations about Jamal, like just in league circles and people that I ran into and talked about. They were like, man, Jamal's looking really good. Like, wow, he looks like, is he like, you think he's back? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I think everybody thinks he's back. So it's incredible that Jamal's already here 3/4 of the way through one season. That's a really promising stretch for his long-term projection. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to Jamal Murray for how he's been electric. He's been brilliantly fierce. Fiercely elegant is definitely a Jamal Murray, I think, trait. And that's also something you'll find in the 2023 Nissan Ariya. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pinion to your seat power and premium intelligence, all in one electric vehicle. So make sure to check it out at nissanusa.com. We're also brought to you today by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here. That's a lie. It's like 3/4 of the way through. I don't know why people think that All-Star is halfway, but the midway point of the NBA season is here and now, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on everything from money line to points scored and three-pointers drained. FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. You can also parlay awards bets over at FanDuel, like I did yesterday, tracked in the Action Network app. Jokic for MVP, Jaren Jackson Jr. for DPOY, Paolo Banchero for Rookie of the Year, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander Most Improved, Norman Powell for Sixth Man of the Year. Got all those in, got a nice 28-1 payout on that ticket if it does wind up hitting, which I do think it will. Don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, making us part of your day. Matt Moore with you solo today. Adam will be with you solo on Thursday and Friday. Always lots of good stuff to check out when he's got a solo show. I'm sure he's got lots of thoughts ruminating from the break. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming schedule. So I wanted to go ahead and take a look at this. So the Nuggets, as it stands, they're 59 games through. They've got 23 games to go. Out of the All-Star break, they play at Cleveland, at Memphis. Then they got a home game versus the Clippers, an away game versus the Rockets. And then at home, it's Grizzlies, Raptors, Bulls. That gets us into mid-March. What I really want to talk about here is the games that you want to prioritize and how Denver's hitting a new point of their season. One of the things that I will tell you about the remaining games from the rest of the season, the Nuggets have a 4-game lead in the loss column over the Memphis Grizzlies for the 2 seed. There's like the idea that the Suns are going to go on a tear where they'll just be able to, like, it would take the Suns becoming a better version of the 2017 Warriors for them to catch Denver, given the lead that they have. Like, the gap here is significant when we start to dive into exactly what the difference is between those two teams. Denver's 4-game lead, even on the 2 seed, let alone where the Suns are, is really significant. And there's going to be an opportunity for them to be able to kind of manage their schedule the way they want to the rest of the way. As an example, with 23 games remaining, the Nuggets' magic number for the Grizzlies, they also have tiebreaker lead, but the magic number for the Grizzlies is 20. So essentially, I would say probably if the Nuggets get to like 13 wins, they're pretty much a lock to go ahead and secure the number 1 seed. Like 13 probably gets it done. If they go 13-9 over this 23 game stretch, 13-10 over this 23 game stretch, they're probably good as far as the number 1 seed goes. Obviously, these Memphis games will help. If you win one or both of the Memphis games, that one's effectively over. It's done. It's very difficult for them to be able to catch up. So those games, I think, matter. What I also think is kind of interesting when we look at those, though, when we start to look at games like the game versus the Clippers, but especially more towards later in the month, they have a 2-game set versus the Suns. They face them in Phoenix on March 31st and then again on April 6th. They face the Golden State Warriors on April 2nd. They face the Kings on April 9th. Those are all potential playoff teams in the Western Conference. The Nuggets are in a position where, and I you know how I feel about certain games. I would say that it's less about trying to get they've done the work to build a regular season win profile that's going to get them the 1 seed. They should start hiding some stuff. They should start playing a little vanilla in some of these matchups. Now, look, everybody runs the same sets. Everybody runs the same stuff. Everybody's been on tape a million times. But you do want to keep certain matchup advantages and how those look away. What you really want to do is you want to not give them a sense of, hey, this actually really worked against them in that game. Like, this guy wasn't able to stay in front of so-and-so. You want to try and disguise some of that. I think the games versus the Clippers and the Suns are the 2 most important ones of that. Like, getting Phoenix on March 31st and April 6th, I think is really important. It's really beneficial because it allows them, that's late enough where it'll probably be like, yeah, they're going to get, like, it's already over. They need, like, their magic number's 4 or something, and they don't have to worry about it. And then I think in those games, you should consider, depending on where they're at from a league standpoint, from getting fined for the national TV spots. I don't have that information in front of me. I would say you should be at least open to the idea of resting certain guys, of holding certain guys back, because you don't want to show them anything more than they have. Like, obviously, the Suns have a good sense of who they are. They face them in a playoff series without Jamal and MPJ, or without Jamal, rather. And, you know, the Clippers know them as well. The Grizzlies know them. These teams all know each other. But I do think you have to have a little bit of a mind for not letting them see any more than you want to of your sets, not letting them see any more than you want to of certain matchups. KW says, I don't think trying to hide your sets is a good thing. It overcomplicates the game to where it distracts the team from playing their best. Okay, so here's a really important thing that I will tell you based off of a long-standing set of evidence. It does not matter how you're playing going into the playoffs. You're going to say that doesn't feel like it's accurate. There's data that backs this up, that essentially how you play in the last 15 games has no correlation to your playoff success. It's not indicative. Some of this is because, well and truly, like, teams are resting guys. as well as like other teams are resting guys. You can be playing really well and it doesn't matter because it just looks like you're playing well because they're resting guys. Phoenix is going to do the same thing. Phoenix is going to disguise some stuff from Denver when they play together. So what I would tell you is the idea of like playing your best, you want to do that in December, January, and February. The Nuggets have done that. Like they have accomplished that goal. So I'm telling you now, there is a little bit of an advantage to actually keeping some stuff away because these little edges are going to matter. Hurricane says, what does Denver need to do to get the league-wide 1 seed? Malone seems pretty intent on wanting that. It's going to be close. I think it's going to be really tight given how Boston kind of approaches games and where they're at. I think it's possible. I think Denver could definitely rack it up because if you look at the remaining schedule, that the East Coast road trip I think is going to matter a lot. Between March 14th and March 22nd, they're at Raptors, at Pistons, at Knicks, at Nets, at Wizards. Every game is winnable for Denver because Denver's that good. Like Denver's arguably the best team in the league. But that stretch for road games where we know that they've struggled, that's going to matter a lot. If they get through that stretch if they go 3-2 or 4-1, they're going to be in a really good position to go ahead and close this out. They do have the Bucks and the Sixers March 25th and the 27th. You guys know what that's going to be like. They're going to be MVP games. Like they're just going to be. Truth be told, at that point in the season, they just don't simply matter that much. It's Eastern Conference opponents at home, which is you want to protect home court. But like really, these things don't wind up mattering a whole lot. Hurricane asks, why is Cleveland favored tomorrow? Cleveland's really good. Cleveland's really good. They should, like, it makes sense to me that they're favored at home. I would also tell you that the power rating from Vegas is going to put Denver down because of the road performance, up because of the Cavs up because of how good the Cavs have been at home, as well as it's going to factor in the Nuggets' entire season performance, which obviously in the beginning was worse, but those games still count towards that power rating. It's weighted more towards recent performance, but those things are still going to bring it down a little bit. Yeah, gassing all out in early April seems like something that could backfire on Denver, says Matthew. I absolutely believe that. I'll tell you this, like, you don't want to push to the end. You want to pace yourself. They've done a really good job of that this season, honestly. Denver's done a very good job of, like, I don't feel like they have been tryhards. I don't feel like this team has been, like, pedal to the metal. They've chosen certain games to exert themselves and certain games where they've, not. And that's okay because that's honestly part of the equation. Kelvin asked, do you think any of these games could swing the MVP vote? It's close enough to the end that those games actually could wind up mattering. That's 27th and 30. That's the 25th and 27th of March. It's still like 2-ish weeks from when the voters will vote. And I also will say this, like you saw this in the straw poll last week with Nicola. There is a huge reservoir that will stick. There are some voters that are going to be hugely impacted by recency bias, but not all of them. It's not uniform. So I would tell you that those games will matter, but it's going to have to be a lot closer than it is now. Joker will have to play worse over the next month in order for those games to matter, is what I would probably tell you. Carlos says, do you think the Nuggets all-time record is in hand that they will go hard for it? Hope not. I could see him doing it. Like, I think Malone wants to, because Malone, I don't think knows how to turn it off. Like, he's like, we have a great team. Let's have the best year possible because we don't know what next year or whatever else is going to look like. But you got to manage it. Like, you're really going to manage it. And again, they've done a very good job. I'm less concerned about the major players because Joker's endurance is nuts. And Jamal, Aaron, and MPJ have missed fair amounts of the season to where I'm not as worried about them. I'm more concerned about guys like KCP, Bruce Brown, rotation guys that Vlatko, honestly, Vlatko's going to wind up playing in more games than he ever has and more minutes. So like, that's a thing you got to balance. You got to keep those things in mind. It's the role players need to be in good condition too. Instead of playing what they're used to in these kind of situations. So I don't think that they should necessarily go in on these things. The other thing I would say as far as like the finals thing, you don't know who you're going to face. Like, if you go all in to try and get the number 1 overall seed and Boston gets bounced in round 2, which I don't think is likely, but it's possible, right? Did you need to do that? What's the cost benefit? So, and you could make the same argument for the conference playoffs, except that it's a little bit more like deal with the finals are far enough and it's such a goal. Deal with the finals when you get there. Like, make the finals, do everything to set yourself up to win the conference. And I do think home court plays a big part of that, but once you get to the finals, okay, like you made the finals, you're at the doorstep and you can figure it out from there. Patrick says the second or third seed would not even be bad. I will disagree with you, Patrick. Here's why that I would disagree that the 2 or 3 would be bad. So if the Clippers look like they're going to make a little bit of a run here, Dallas is in a position to do the same with Kyrie back, assuming they can figure out how Kyrie and Luka play together. But the bigger thing here is that there's a small chance, that you might be able to get a situation where it's Denver 1, Memphis 2, Phoenix 3, Kings 4, Dallas 5, Warriors 6. That's on the table. That's more likely than I think Warriors being 4-5. Like Warriors being 7-8 is definitely possible, and having to face that and Denver having to face them in the first round, definitely possible. But if there is a scenario where you could possibly get Memphis, the Suns, and the Warriors all on the other side of the bracket, and you get your bracket is 1-8, say it's Wolves or Thunder, and then Kings, Mavericks on the other side of the 4-5, that seems really pretty likely. I didn't forget the Clippers. Joshua says Clippers 4-5 feels pretty likely. I will tell you this, like there's kind of an assumption that the Clippers are going to make this like massive run. They're at 28 losses right now. The Pelicans are at 29 for the 7th spot. The Wolves are at 30. Dallas is at 29 for the 6th spot. So like what this could wind up also happening is, even if we remove out the Warriors, it could be Clippers, Suns 3-6 with the Grizzlies in the 2 spot. I would say like here's my thing with the Clippers. If you're like, well, yeah, but look at how they played lately. Yeah, because Kawhi's played. I don't know if he's gonna play. I don't know. Right? They always have these kind of issues. Plus, the rest of the Westbrook thing is a little bit of an issue. So Vlada asked, what happens if 3-point percent goes down in the playoffs? One bad 3-point game cost Serbia maybe the gold medal in Euro Cup last year. I mean, yeah, like, look, the 3-point percentage is like, you're always going to be subject to variance. If you have it, it's a make or miss league. So that's absolutely something that you should be concerned with. Evan says people are way hot on the Clips, Warriors, and Suns for the regular season, and I don't get it. Look, the Suns could very well rattle off like a huge win streak. You need to keep in mind that the Suns were the number 1 seed before they started getting the injuries. Like before first Chris got hurt, and then Chris came back, and Devin got hurt, and then they lost like everybody. They were like the 1 seed then. They were playing really well. This is still a really good team, and they added Kevin Durant. And even if you lose some depth there, Kevin makes your team better, right? So like I think the Suns need to be in that kind of conversation. I think the Clippers, it's based off of like they've been really good over this last stretch. Their offense was horrible for 2 months, and they've gotten to be more of the team. Like, I will honestly tell you, I think Nuggets fans are overlooking the Clippers a little bit. I think that there's a little bit of overlooking the Clips. I understand why, based off of the matchup and the 3-1 and the history, but like they still had a 3-1 lead on Denver with a much worse team with a much worse coach in the bubble. So like I would tell you this team is way better, and I would tell you that the coaching is way better. So like I would tell you to not overlook the Clippers kind of as much as they are. The Warriors, I don't know what to do with, because their starters still have the best net rating in the league, minimum 100 minutes. They've just whipped when they've been on the floor. Steph doesn't seem to be able to get healthy. The defense is worse. The depth is worse. Teams that aren't top 3 don't win the conference almost ever. There's only been 16 instances of a team outside the top 3 winning their conference in NBA history. NBA history. Since 2000, there's one. So I don't have like a good example of like what to do here as far as the Warriors go. But I will just say like it's at some level you're just going to be like, it's the Warriors. Kirsten jumping all the way if they win the title. Will the Nuggets and players actually get the respect of the league by winning the championship, or will people say that Denver's win is a fluke? Some people will always say Denver's win is a fluke. Absolutely. Like Nick Wright's not going to give him respect. He doesn't benefit from that, right? Like People on the shows that you guys listen to benefit not from being the most honest, but from generating the most engagement by being most entertaining. So that's kind of how you got to think of it. I'll tell you, man, the player side I think is interesting because like there was a lot of players at All-Star this weekend that were like, yeah, Jokic kills. Like Jokic is amazing. Have you seen him? And you're starting to see that more and more where like anybody that's had to play him a lot up close or in a series, they're like, don't overlook Nicole. Like he's legit. LeBron, I think, is always going to look down on him just because like it's LeBron. I think that's just how he's always going to be. Oh, King of Thornton's here. It's incredibly on brand for KSC to not acknowledge Nuggets history, and it's kind of shameful they haven't acknowledged Red McComb's passing. But they didn't even know that their 50th season was. So, yeah, I get it. Yeah, Red McComb's passed away. If you want to read more about Red McCombs and the importance of it, I recommend you check out Jeff Morton's Twitter feed because Jeff is really good about understanding NBA history. Anyway, let's look at the schedule breakdown. Let's talk about defense because there's some interesting questions about how Denver defends, what they're good at, what they're not. We'll get to all those and more when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. First, I need to tell you about Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat that you don't want all the fat and the calories, you got to try Built Bar. What makes Built so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. They're so delicious, you won't even think that they're good for you. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almonds. We don't know how Built does it, but their bars taste like a candy bar with amazing macros. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. You can get your boxes now at Walmart and Sam's Club. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Or if you go to Sam's Club, you can get a 13-bar box with their hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You'll thank me later. Make sure to check out all the great flavors at built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of our day. Appreciate you guys being with us. Chat's bumping as always. Adam Mars will be with you tomorrow and Friday as the Nuggets get set to resume play after the All-Star break. Some quick practice notes. Jamal Murray, like I mentioned earlier in the ad read, is going to be available. He said he's going to play on Thursday. Malone said that Gordon might play. Aaron Gordon made it sound a little bit more like he's a little bit more doubtful. So we'll see with the rib contusion. It's not going to be a long-term thing, but they also don't have to push it. They've been fine without him, which is incredible. They're just killing it. Blacko's been awesome in that. We'll be interested tomorrow on that Cavs game to see kind of the matchup with Jared Allen's an amazing defender against pick and roll coverage, but he struggles with good post up defenders. That's why Embiid eats him. So Jokic should be able to dominate that matchup. Saw that earlier in the season as well. And then I'm really kind of curious to see Evan Mobley versus Michael Porter Jr. That's going to be a pretty fascinating 4-5 matchup if that's the one that happens. Blacko should be able to. We'll probably deal with a lot of the size, but it'd be an interesting matchup nonetheless. A lot of like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. That's a really great guard combo. So the guards will have their work cut out for them trying to contain them in pick and roll. Let's talk a little bit about defense. Someone mentioned this in the chat earlier, and I want to kind of get to it. So the luck adjusted stuff doesn't like Denver. This is a big part of it. Is the luck adjusted numbers tend to look at these things and say that Denver is not that good. Jose had this where he said, B-Ball Index says the Nuggets luck adjusted defense is actually 23rd in the league. Do you think this matters? Do you think the Nuggets defense is able to be not just above average, but elite? I will say that I will put the cap at like very good. I don't think Denver can be elite because it requires a level of physicality that I don't think that they possess. They have physical defenders. I think Aaron's physical. I think actually MPJ is pretty physical. And I think Vlatko can be relatively physical. Joker's not physical. Jamal's not physical. And then, but really part of the key on this is that Bruce Brown isn't, unless he surprises us in the playoffs, isn't very physical. It's why he's had problems with bigger players the entire season, which has been a consistent trend across all the Nuggets coverage that you're going to see is like he's really struggled in those. Denver's defense has really evolved to a place where they have been very good. And I want to credit David Adelman with this. You heard me on this show yelling about the scheme early in the season about what are we doing? Right. They had gone so far towards drop. It had been a real problem in pick and roll coverage. The Nuggets have become way more versatile. They are running zone, switch, drop, hedge, blitz. There's a slight differential in those two things. Blitzing is way more aggressive. Hedge is basically just containing at the level of the screen. They're running all these types of different coverage depending on what the personnel is. And we've always talked about this, and it really is important. The key for the Nuggets defensively is not to be an elite unit at what they do. It's that they are able to solve the problems that are presented to them while their offense forces the opponent to always have to take the ball out of their basket. If the Nuggets stay out of transition, they're going to be in really good shape. A lot of the playoffs and their defensive success will be dictated by their ability to dictate pace. It's not just Memphis, who's exceptional in transition. It's going to be Phoenix. You don't want to get in situations where Phoenix is running and creating open transition threes. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, even Landry Shamet, even Damian Lee. You don't want those opportunities. You have to dictate pace. You want these games to be grind out. If it's Luka and the Mavericks, you want the other way. You want more possessions because you have such a big edge in points per possession mark that you can generate an advantage there. But look, since December 7th, the Nuggets now have – December 7th was the Mavericks loss. That was the home Mavericks loss when we were all like, this is bad. Bad. December 8th on, the Nuggets are 6th in defensive rating in the NBA. A lot of their luck-adjusted stuff has kind of started to stabilize. They're heading way more towards 10 than 20 now. They moved from 25th, where they were way closer to 30th than 20th. Then they moved to middle of the pack, and now they're getting closer to 10. I'm not going to be surprised if this winds up being a top 10 defense by the end of the year. Not going to be top 5, but it'll have been top 5 for like the last 4 months of the season, depending on how much effort they give, right? Like they could obviously just kind of coast out here, and their defensive numbers could get destroyed, which I honestly don't think would be bad because I'm always about surprise them with low expectations. So, Tamer says they'll be taking the ball out of the basket so they won't get fast breaks. It's true, but this also speaks a lot to what Adam talks about, which is like the importance of the offense. The offense has got to be clean and functioning. The Nuggets are not going to be able to defend. I'll say this. The Nuggets can't win an 88-80 game. They can't win a 96-90 game in the playoffs. Okay? If they are not generating the efficiency to slow them down, they are too weak in transition and they get too easily scrambled. It's still a very big weak point, especially on the road. They get scrambled in mid-transition matchups, and that's going to be an issue. But they've gotten much, much better at it. Charles says defense is getting better, but still too many rage timeouts for Malone for my liking. Look, guys, at some point you're going to have to accept that Malone's done a great job this year. I crushed him last year. Crushed him. I said it was the worst coaching season of his career. Okay. I have said on radio in Denver, I have said that if they don't make the finals, that's a failure. And the first place that you have to look and place blame is going to have to be on Michael Malone. That's the reality of his situation. He's done great this year. He's been amazing. Like Malone deserves your props. The rage timeouts are not, he is not the only one that does them. And I would also say that he's gotten a lot better about not running them, actually. Like I've commented on this. He has thrown a lot fewer of them than he used to. So I would he's cut down on those a lot. Hurricane kind of mentions this too. The defense, I think if we look at the concern is what Jose kind of talked about, which is if those luck-adjusted numbers are based off of three-point percentage. Teams aren't shooting well versus Denver. If they start to shoot well versus Denver, the defensive efficiency is going to go way, way up, which is bad. And there's a chance that definitely happens, right? A lot of this is going to get into the variant nature of the NBA currently, where if you shoot badly from three and the opponent shoots well, all the X's and O's matchups, all the talent disparities, all of that, none of it matters. If the Mavericks shoot well above expectation from 3-point percentage in a playoff series and the Nuggets shoot well below, they will lose. I hate shooting because of that fact, I'm just like, yeah, but you don't try to shoot harder. You just shoot. Like it's all about mechanics. Like you try and get in your rhythm. You make sure you're focused and that your shot is the same way and it goes in or it doesn't. But the reality is you're going to have to make shots and they're going to have to not. If they shoot above, especially if you're containing them to, here's part of it is you can contain them to bad looks, and if they make them, it doesn't matter. And you will still feel like you're giving up too many threes. But this is a lot of it. I will say, though, I've looked at the shot quality of Denver month by month, and it's gotten better and better and better. They have managed to contain these things a lot. Somebody asked in the comments about if they face the Suns about that mid-range problem with Chris Paul. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're not going to run drop, because I don't know why they ran drop last time, other than like I have to assume Joker was tired. I would be very surprised if they did not put more pressure at the level of the ball handler against Chris Paul. The other thing I would say is they've gotten much, much better at drop because they can get over the screen more. Like Chris has targeted, if you remember that Christmas game, Chris targeted MPJ to put him in pick and roll with Joker. MPJ was able to get over the screen and contest on that. That gets harder if it's Kevin Durant because he's 7 feet tall. But it's going to be tough. Hurricane says, Malone's still my biggest concern in the playoffs. I think he's a very good coach, but where his weaknesses and tendencies might not match up with the way that this team needs to win. I don't know. I would tell you guys that he made the adjustments that he needed to make versus that Spurs series. This is what I don't think Nuggets fans, because a lot of them are new, and that's okay. The Nuggets should have lost the first round series versus the Spurs if we're talking about trajectory. And you're like, but they were the higher seed. I understand. You were facing a much better coach in Greg Popovich, and oftentimes these young teams, when they're untested and they get in the playoffs, they fail. I wasn't surprised they struggled with the Spurs. The fact that they were able to actually adjust and get back into that series. They lost game 2 at home to the Blazers. They got back into forces of game 7. They came back twice from 3-1. Like, the idea that Malone's a better playoff coach than he is a regular season coach, because the players aren't annoyed that he wants to win so bad. Like, to me, is Malone Nick Nurse? No. Is he Eric Spoelstra? No. But he has shown a capacity to be able to make these adjustments. And people will say, like, yeah, but it's too slow. He does it too slow. Okay. If you do them too fast, you wind up running out of moves. That's something that, like, I talked to a coach about this, a former coach rather, over the summer about this. It was a really interesting point. He said, you're always trying to stretch out the adjustments, because if you make them too early, you get into a point, it's like checkers, where it's like, and then you're out and you just got to play it out. You always want to have one more adjustment left in the bag. You don't burn everything out, because you have to count on some of the variance inside of a series. So that, I think, is part of it. Timer says, yeah, but Malone is part of the reasons they went down 3-1. Okay, so was Joker. You don't think Joker was part of the reason they went down 3-1 to the Jazz? We want to relitigate that one again. Every fan base hates their coach, Evan McKee says. Absolutely correct. 100%. The other thing I will kind of say is the Nuggets have a lot of options here. It may take them a little bit to find the right matchups. Malone's going to enter into some being like, oh, Bruce Brown can guard that guy. And then he may find out, like, no, I was wrong, and I got to move him off of him. They're going to dare teams to go at MPJ, and MPJ will either manage that, or he'll struggle and they're going to have to make some tough decisions. But they have enough versatility to where the only player that you can't really move around is Joker. And Joker's going to have to play great defense in the playoffs. No one is going to want to put expectations on Joker because he's the best player. He holds up the offense. He's going to win another MVP. I am telling you that you should expect Nikola Jokic to play great defense in the playoffs, because there's no other option for Denver. Every team is going to make him the pressure point. There's no option. No amount of other guys. You cannot expect everyone else to make up that difference. He's going to have to do the job. I think he can, but we'll see. That's the question that I think we have to ask. Let's get wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets for your Wednesday. Appreciate you guys being with us. Hope you guys are staying warm and safe from the weather that's out there. Adam will be with you on Thursday and Friday, breaking down the return to action for the Denver Nuggets, as well as whatever's rattling around in his brain. I'll see you guys on Monday when I get back from a little mini vacation. Hope you guys have yourselves a great week. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe. Appreciate you guys joining us. Check out the show on Twitter at Locked On Nuggets. We'll see you guys again next time. Thanks for joining me on Locked On Nuggets.